Okay. No justice, no peace. Prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. Peace. Prosecute the police. Please. No justice, no peace. Prosecute the police. Please. No justice, no peace. Prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. Prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. Prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. Please. Prosecute the police. Please. No justice, no peace. Prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. Hey. Prosecute the police. Hey. No justice, no peace. Yeah. Prosecute the police. Yeah. No justice, no peace. Yeah. Prosecute the police. Yeah. No justice, no peace. Yeah. Prosecute the police. What? No justice, no peace. What? Prosecute the police. What? No justice, no peace. What? Prosecute the police. What?
I'll introduce her momentarily, probably reintroduce her as more people join the call, but Nyota Uhura is one of the first real voices um, speaking out to the role that Black Lives Matter was playing in the Ferguson uprising. And for many of us who were outside of St. Louis and the events there in Missouri, her voice was one of the clearest, one of the earliest to speak out about the role that Black Lives Matter was playing in the fight, the problematic role. Black Lives Matter and other individuals and groups. Um, and so we basically started reaching out to her and following a lot of her posts on Facebook um, that were really kind of countering the narrative of the news that was coming out of there. Um, and she put together handsup.don'tshoot.com, which was kind of an attempt to archive and put out the narrative of the fighters on the ground in Ferguson and to counter the mass media narrative. So um, she's still around. Hands Up Don't Shoot is still around and really hasn't been changing anything. She's been saying about them for now 7 years. So we're really excited to have the opportunity to talk to her direct. Um, Also, for this discussion is one of the friends of the podcast of Mass Action Live is Brian Taylor, one of the leaders of the Anti-Police Brutality Coalition in Cincinnati. And a few years back was one of the co-founders of a group called Mass Action for Black Liberation, which was formerly known as Black Lives Matter Cincinnati. And while nowadays there's many Black Lives Matter chapters who have kind of been calling out Black Lives Matter global or national. The group in Cincinnati was maybe the first one, certainly, um, and Brian will go in more detail about that. I should point out it was never formally affiliated with the network, but in any case, still just the common misconceptions about Black Lives Matter, what it was, what the leadership of this mass movement is, where it came from. These are some of the questions that we hope to delve into today. So, um, while we are waiting for our guests to join, I'm gonna throw up, I guess, one of the recent articles. There's been a couple of instances in the news recently that have kind of changed the debate or whatever has focused the debate on Black Lives Matter. So um, mainly the growing and part of it was touched off from the fact that um, Black Lives Matter Global Network officially uh, shared their finances for 2020, which is really the first time they ever were transparent about how much money they were collecting. And the figure was in the range of $90 million, which came as, for some that was shocking amount. Um, but as we get into it, we'll discuss how this was just, really scratching the surface of, the amount of money that was raised in the name of Black Lives Matter. Um, and then in light of that, a few high profile fighting families have recently kind of called out Black Lives Matter for not helping the families. Mike Brown Sr. Was kind of the first to come out and basically, raising that they never supported his foundation or any of the organizers in Ferguson, some who are still in prison for their fighting. And then after that, Samaria Rice came out and kind of echoed those sentiments, but also named a few others out there who weren't part of the official Black Lives Matter organization, but were still part of the overall kind of promoting that idea of kind of hashtag activism. Figures like Tamika Mallory, Sean King. She even named a few lawyers like Ben Crump, Lee Merritt as being exploitative to the families who lost loved ones to police violence. So we want to get into that as well. So we're still waiting for our guest, but I just want to introduce Brian Taylor for the moment, and maybe you can get into a little bit of what came up when you decided to change the name. I'm going to throw up momentarily there's a document that the group in Cincinnati produced. I'll do that right now. And then Brian, maybe you can just give us a few words, and hopefully we'll get our other guests on.
Sure. So when we first began to, and when I say we, there's probably like 8 or so people who kept seeing each other at actions that were being called by kind of the traditional Black leadership in Cincinnati, but whose demands were not exactly what we thought they should be. And they were also tied into another local fight by a judge here that we thought should be untangled, should not be connected per se. But we met each other and decided we should start meeting and try to form a group and that can organize actions that have kind of demands that are more along the lines of what we later became. And early on, it was clear to myself and several other people who started to see what the very initial ideas that Black Lives Matter, the national group, was beginning to put out or provide as sort of the way to organize actions, did not like it. Did not like the idea that that you would have different sort of categories of people who would be in actions. That, you know, we wanted a group that was contained people of all different walks that would be active. And not everybody agreed. I mean, there were debates and discussions along the way. And there's several other points like that where the whole question of identity politics, which others people inside the movement and creates a situation where you can't discuss politics clearly because the minute there's differences, you know, whatever your identity is starts to become the thing you use to get your point across to some degree. So there's all kinds of elements like that in its very beginnings that I wasn't comfortable with, and several other people weren't comfortable with. So we just decided off the bat, let's have an independent organization. Like, we were inspired by this idea of Black Lives Matter, as a name, that was, and so, but we weren't down with the kind of what was being organized. So we called ourselves Black Lives Matter Cincinnati, an independent political organization or whatever. And those were kind of our beginnings. And as things began to develop more and more, and Black Lives Matter went from a hashtag to, becoming an organization, or at least a series of ideas, it became even clearer that we were not on the same course. So we started to have discussions in our group, develop a set of principles, which many people stand by to this day, that were political principles of what we stand on. And we'll get into it later in the discussion, but one of the key aspects of it was calling for prosecution and jailing of cops, which was never and has never been on the agenda of Black Lives Matter, Movement for Black Lives, and B4L, or any of the affiliates that that focus on their politics. So that was kind of the very beginning. And along the way, after 2016, myself and several other people began to agitate for the idea of, look, we shouldn't have this name at all. This name is not, this group is not heading in a direction we want it to. And, we're sullying ourselves by keeping it, but part of the rationale, which is a legitimate argument, is that we had done so much work with that name in Cincinnati that why would we give it up? Why wouldn't we start why wouldn't we vie for the politics that we're putting forward with our principles against what the national organization was doing, which we continue to do, and openly explain why we're different and what the type of organization we think should exist. But over time and internal debates, it became clearer and clearer to some of us, more to some of us than others, that this is a solidified national formation with solidified politics that wasn't going to change. And so now everything we do, every positive thing we do, every advance we make, as opposed to becoming a force that could counter and vie for the national name, basically was giving props to the national name that was carrying out, in many cases, diametrically opposed perspectives on actions. So eventually we finally made the call to explain the history of the betrayal of Black Lives Matter to the movement against police brutalities and the families behind that, and to formally and publicly break. And we created the document that Brock shows, that we published, and it became a whirlwind where, a lot of people were feeling the same way in other groups around the country. Many groups that don't even call themselves Black Lives Matter, but kept getting grouped into this Black Lives Matter thing. You're all Black Lives Matter. No, we're not. We're all these different organizations that have politics and different ideas. Nah, you're all Black Lives Matter. That's how the press treated it. So, and Nyota's contribution was very central to making that decision, as well as a very important trip that we were able to take to St. Louis, organized by and with Tony Taylor, who is an impacted family member whose son, Kerry Ball Jr., was killed by police, and has been, part of the fight pretty much from the beginning. So I'll stop there. That's just a little bit about the beginnings of our group. We later changed the name to something we thought was more representative of what we stood for. And that's a little bit of the background, but we'll dig into some of the specifics of what the betrayals were, hopefully, in the program.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, just want folks who are out there trying to get in on the discussion to bear with us. We're having some kind of technical difficulties. So if you had trouble joining the Zoom, please keep trying. I don't know why the link is giving some folks trouble and others not. Well, we're still waiting on our featured guest. So I guess what I'll try to do is let's see what's going on here. Oh yeah. I just want to I guess show some more slides here while we wait for our main speaker. Some of these things I definitely want her to speak on direct, so I'll try to hold up. But for those that aren't aware or haven't been following this, it's been unfolding over the last several weeks, just kind of the public calling out. Oh, here we go. We got more people joining now. So get more people on. Yeah, I don't know what happened with the here we go. Now people are able to get on. For some reason people are having a problem with the link, but now I think we fixed the issue. So hold on everyone. Just bear with us. Oh. Okay. I think we had a miscommunication on the time zone. So what we'll try to do, I wanna throw up something because it's recent. BLM statement. So there was a statement that 10 chapters put out, and we'll just go into that now. Since got it right here. The BLM 10. Originally it was 10 chapters, and they put this call for accountability out in regard to the fact that there was 90 million raised in 2020 by BLM Global Network. And basically, here we go. Y'all can read it. Basically the chapters kind of reformed, and Patrice Cullors, who was one of the main of the three women who formed the hashtag, Patrice Cullors, Opal Tomete, and Alicia Garza. Patrice kind of is the one that remained with the group. Opal Tomete and Alicia Garza now kind of left BLM for other ventures that they're involved in, although they sometimes speak on behalf of BLM as original founders for different media situations. Basically, they formed the Global Network Foundation. Since then, they also formed a political action committee which has been working very closely with the Democratic Party and the Biden campaign for president. And BLM Grassroots. The BLM Grassroots is now kind of the name of their official chapters, who are more or less under the umbrella of BLM Global Network. And so several chapters had a problem with this. They oh, here we go. Here's Nyota. Great. Well, we're going to come back to this for the moment. I just want to first apologize to Nyota. I kind of miscommunicated the time, but we're very, very lucky to have Nyota along with us today. So, and I just want to, before I bring her on, just want to tell a little story because, and I told it a little bit, because I was out here in Boston when, you know, we saw things unfolding in St. Louis and like the rest of the world, just trying to figure it out. And over the course of several months, you know, it just kind of got confusing as to what this movement was about. But in trying to decipher what was going on, one of Nyota's posts were essential, I know, for me to get a sense that my suspicions were correct, and basically that, you know, something was going on that wasn't right. And we have been in discussion for, you know, on the phone for, you know, a few months, probably in my recollection, it goes back in late 2014. But fast forward about a year and a half, we were having discussions trying to get Nyota to come and speak in Boston to the movement here. And she, you know, doesn't usually do a lot of speaking engagements. And that's also why we're very fortunate to have Nyota join us today. But she had told me that there was one person she was willing to travel with. And that was literally maybe a week before Darren Seals was murdered, and that was actually who she was planning to come to Boston with. It never really unfolded, but definitely, you know, Darren Seals' example and his contributions a big part of why we're doing what we're doing with mass action, and definitely want to get into that a little bit. So just want to welcome Nyota, and then basically just get into it. We've already had a little bit of discussion about, you know, just the fact that BLM's been in the news more recently, getting called out from a number of corners. But as I said, you were one of the first, if not the first, to call them out. So just wanted to get your more or less get a sense of, you know, what were you doing in St. Louis when all this was unfolding with Mike Brown, and why did you decide to get involved originally? And we just want to get into some of the early stuff, but then, you know, talk about some of the present stuff too.
First, I want to say thanks for having me. This has been a long time coming. Like you said, I think we first connected back in late 2014 when you were trying to get me to come up to Massachusetts. And things were just so, I don't even really know how to describe, but I just really didn't feel safe because of the things that I was seeing happening, in Ferguson, and people that I thought I could trust, coming to the realization that I couldn't trust them. So, um, and yes, when we were discussing me traveling there, Darren was the one person I felt comfortable traveling with. We had a lot of plans and just a lot of things that we were going to do, moving forward. And unfortunately, those things didn't happen. But what did happen, we were able to um, bring some things to the forefront. Um, the reason I came out when Mike Brown was murdered was because, I mean, I don't know how much your audience knows about St. Louis, but if you Google St. Louis with the most dangerous murder capital, uh, racism, police brutality, just everything, just it's it's ranked one of the worst places for Black people in this country. But what really stuck out to me that particular day was seeing his body lay there. I remember being on Facebook, and when I first saw the photo, the image, um, I didn't know if it was a virus, because this was back during that time where there were a lot of Facebook viruses and things like that. So I wasn't really sure what I was looking at. And as time progressed, you know, the image kept appearing just in my timeline over and over again. And then I started seeing people that I know, comment, and then they were saying, this is Canfield. And that's when I realized, it was St. Louis, and I actually had at the time cousins who lived in Canfield in those apartments, and I had a nephew, and, I'm just really concerned, about what's going on. But as time went by, and you're talking about hours and hours in sweltering heat. They wouldn't they wouldn't do that to a dog, you know. And I think it just really struck a nerve with a lot of people. Um it was really the straw that broke the camel's back. Don't get me wrong, we've had events like this in St. Louis forever. Mike Brown wasn't the first, and unfortunately he wasn't the last. Um but it just gets to a point where you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I think that that's what really brought a lot of people out. They were just tired and just ready to take that stand.
Yeah, thank you. Can you describe some of the energy that and the momentum of the uprising at the time?
Oh wow, it was organic. People just came together. I remember that night there were people who were at Canfield. There were people who were outside of the Ferguson Police Department. That's where I went because I wanted answers. You know, um, there's a photo. I don't know if people remember it, but it's that night out at Canfield, and you have the police officers with a lot of dogs coming out, um, and just sicking the dogs on the crowd. And as people started seeing these images and things like this, it was just really, really disturbing. Okay. Can you give me 1 second? Could you hold 1 second, please, Brock?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
So let me put you on
I'm
mute.
sorry.
So yeah, we're really honored and fortunate to have Nyota on the call. She's not granting interviews to anyone And, you know, she gets a lot of requests because she has been the consistent voice on this for years. So I want her to describe a little bit more about just what it was like in Ferguson, but we're eventually going to talk about some of the things that happened with Darren Seals. So Nyota, whenever you're ready, just unmute yourself. All right, let me throw this back up here, what we're looking at. So as I was saying, and we'll get back to what was going on in Ferguson, but these are the demands that these BLM chapters were raising. One, Patrice, as a sole board member of BLM Global Network, became director against the will of most chapters without their knowledge. The newly announced formation, BLM Grassroots, does not have the support of and was created without consultation with the vast majority of chapters. Formation of BLM Grassroots effectively separated the majority of chapters from BLM-NG without their consent and interrupted the active process of accountability that was being established by those chapters. Now, experienced chapters have been consistently prevented from establishing financial transparency, collective decision-making, or collaboration on political analysis and vision within BLM Global Network. For years, there's been inquiry regarding the financial operations, no acceptable process via the public, internal transparency about the unknown millions of dollars donated to BLM Global Network, which has certainly increased during this time of pandemic and rebellion. To the best of our knowledge, most chapters have received little or no financial support from BLM Global Network since the launch in 2013. It was only in the last few months selected chapters appear to have been invited to apply for a $500,000 grant created with resources generated because of the organizing labor of chapters. This is not the equity and financial accountability we would deserve. I'm going to stop there for a second. And Nyota, you can chime back in because we want to get back to the story you were telling. But I just want to say that, like, these BLM chapters, they have a grievance that is, you know, legitimate, that apparently all the lion's share of the money was going to BLM National based on the perception that it would, I guess, help the overall effort. But I mean, a bigger story needs to be told is that, you know, a lot of these protests weren't even organized by BLM chapters, you know, and BLM was still being attributed with the credit for anything that was going on. And so, you know, their same grievance is, you know, kind of the grievances that the families are raising now, like Mike Brown and Samari, like, you know, where has the help come to anybody who's been contributing to this effort? And I guess I can just talk a little bit about, you know, what's kind of spurred this discussion at this moment. We've been talking about this for years to anybody that knows mass action, but it hasn't been as out in the open in the public sphere. It's largely, you know, it was taboo to criticize BLM in any way. But anyways, in light of this public scrutiny, it's not just these 10 chapters, but a lot of individuals are trying to disassociate themselves with the BLM Global Network. And that's part of the discussion we want to get into tonight is, you know, what was the nature of the damage done? I'm gonna pause what I'm saying, and hopefully, Nyota, you back?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Really appreciate.
Hello?
Sorry,
Hello?
I went on
Okay.
mute. I went on mute.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Go ahead with what you
no,
were
I was
saying.
just
From
gonna
number.
say, getting back to what I was saying, I mean, it was just organic. People just started coming out, um, and it was old people, young people. Um, oh my God, I have to go again. I'm sorry. Give
Okay.
me 5 minutes and I'll be good, and we
All
could
right.
take it from the top.
All right.
Okay.
I mean, so back to what I was saying. Um, hey, we'll get there, people. Just bear with us. And hopefully we'll get to the discussion soon too, where people can ask questions that they have. Um, but I just wanted to mention a Boston story because, you know, we're called Mass Action Against Police Brutality. And, you know, we've been the main group organizing protests around police brutality over the last 7 years. I mean, there's been other groups, and BLM Boston organized one of the first ones, but you know, it's been a lot of time since, and actually real victims, new cases in Boston and Massachusetts. And you know, BLM Boston has been not present at all. Um, and we have no accounting of, you know, the kind of money that they've accumulated through donations and so forth. That's the other point that should be raised. I know there's some people on the call here that can speak to that, but is that even though, you know, 90 million was brought in by BLM Global Network, many of these local chapters also have been receiving local donations or whatever, random donations. So in some cases to the tune of millions of dollars themselves. And that's part of what also needs to be uncovered. But anyways, one of the members of the BLM Boston approached me actually literally yesterday, wondering what they could do to get involved to help some local families, which is quite interesting. And apparently I was not aware of it. I don't know who else is aware of it, but there was a split in the local BLM Boston group that it's over a year old, apparently. You wouldn't really know it because BLM Boston has not been active at all, you know. I don't know what they've done in their own name, but they have lent their name to what some other folks have done, and that's pretty much all they've done in Boston, at least publicly. Um, so it was kind of amusing for them to be so interested in helping families because they have not been helping families for pretty much their whole duration, and I'm pretty sure they've taken way more donations than anything Mass Action has, you know, received to help the effort that we've been trying to help lead. So those are our questions, but it's been not just a problem for the chapters. This misperception has been a problem for the entire movement. But anyway, I think we have Nyota back. How are you feeling? You there?
I'm good. Sorry about that. It just
It's
seems
okay.
like all chaos at one time. But I was listening to you talk about the money, you
Right,
know,
right.
and I want to jump to that part. Um,
Well, we want to jump there too, but I want to you know, I want you to talk about some of the other stuff too, though,
okay,
which was a
that's
big part of it,
fine.
you know.
Yeah, that's fine. Just the whole build up to it. Because I want people to understand that everything that's seeing right now didn't just start right now. Like all of this has seeds and roots in the Ferguson uprising. Um,
Right,
these were the things that Darren and I were exposing 5 or 6 years ago. But to get back to what I was talking about before, it was just people power. It was amazing. It was something I never thought I would see in St. Louis because St. Louis is a very uh, racially segregated city. It is a city where even, you know, Black people don't come together, you know, not for real, for real. And just to see, you know, all of these different demographics come together like the next day, I think that's when everything just really started happening. the next day because word got out that there was going to be a rally, you know, for everyone to show up in front of the Ferguson Police Department. And as word spread, everyone came out, you know, so many different groups came out. Um, and just seeing St. Louis come together to take a stand like that, like I said, it's something I never thought I would see in my life, you know, and it was a beautiful thing. You know, it gave people hope, you know, it really did. And, you know, just the young people, you know, because word spread with them and they really felt like, wow, this is it, you know, this is our moment. Um, just seeing young brothers, you know, I was speaking to a lot of the young brothers and sisters. A lot of them wouldn't come on camera with me, you know, to tell me what they were feeling and things like that, you know, but we were having these conversations and they were listening, you know, and you have to understand that it's a lot of young brothers and sisters who have just been thrown away, you know, by the powers that be, you know, that are led to believe that they have no value, you know, and to see them stand and rise and look at us and put their faith in people who call themselves leaders, you know, and to go from that to what ultimately happened, you know, with the hijacking of Ferguson and just watching, I don't know, us lose that moment. I'll put it like that. um, is really heartbreaking because I think we lost a generation. I really do. I really truly believe we lost a generation. And there will be another Mike Brown here. And if there's another uprising, I don't know if St. Louis will recover. I really don't.
Um, you said hijacked. How so? Like what happened?
Um, okay, during this time, there were people coming out, you know, in the hundreds, possibly even thousands, you know. There were safe houses set up, you know, and things like that. So me personally, I started, some people I knew just because they were activists in the community. A lot of people I did not know. Um, I remember being at St. Mark's Church, which was a safe house at that time. Um, I didn't know it was a safe house at that time. The way I found out was late one night, I was on West Florissant by myself. It had to be like maybe midnight, 1 in the morning. And I was just trying to get to some place that was safe because we were kind of surrounded by police, like from Chambers down to Ferguson, like where the McDonald's was. So in either direction that you're going in, you know, you could be tear gassed, you know, or have rubber bullets shot at you or whatever. So I'm just pretty much trying to find some safe place to be. And I stumbled upon Tefpo. He was out there, you know, and he told me, well, let's try to get to the safe house. And I'm like, safe house? Because I didn't know it was a safe house. I've been out there like every night, you know what I'm saying? And I had no idea that there was a safe house, you know. So we made our way to St. Mark's Church, you know, and that's when I found out there was a safe house. But I say that I preface with that to say that that was where I met Patrice Cullors, Black Lives Matter, Philip Agnew, and others when they touched down. Now, when they came here, I had no idea that they were from out of town or really who they were, you know, because they didn't come here as Black Lives Matter. They just came here as just reinforce, just people, you know what I'm saying? For all I knew, they could have been from St. Louis. You know, they could have been from any of from the city or any of the municipalities in the county. You know, I had no idea. So, you know, I met them, and just at that moment, the way they seemed kind of they seem to kind of have an agenda already, because they came in, um, people started moving, around, things started happening. They started going into closed doors, closed rooms and things like that. I'm trying to go in these closed rooms because I'm thinking we're going to all have a conversation, about what's going on. And, they were keeping me out of these rooms, which really, sparked my curiosity. Like, what is going on that I can't be in there? And actually, I had a very heated, argument with Montega Simmons, of OBS and Hands Up United. But even at that time when they were saying Hands Up United, we're just thinking it's Hands Up United. Like all of us, united. We're not thinking that Hands Up United is actually a org, you know what I'm saying? Where, they have the black faces, fronting for the nonprofits and things like that. But yeah, I had a conversation with Patrice Cullors, when she came, and there's a photo floating around someone took of us when we were having that conversation, and the photo tells the whole story, because she's looking very impatient with me, and my questioning, but things just didn't seem right. And then just the people with her, they seem to have an agenda, so that's when I came to the realization that, maybe I need to look deeper into this and see what's really going on. But to answer your question about how the hijacking came about, I mean, we're out there at night getting tear gassed, and shot with rubber bullets, and things like that. And then, the next day you turn on the TV, you turn on CNN, and you see these people. And I'm like, oh, I met them, and they're on TV saying that, they're, like the leaders, the spokespeople, and we're all like, what? Because a lot of people, I mean, most people didn't even know them, because they didn't meet them. Like I said, a lot of people didn't even know about the safe house. That wasn't promoted to the protesters. That was more or less for people like BLM, Philip Agnew and the Dream Defenders and other people who came. That wasn't something that they had set up for local grassroots. And so just seeing them on TV, and then seeing, D-Ray, and all these different people, you know, people started asking questions, like, who are these people? Because at that's the point in time where I realized, okay, they're not from here. They have some other agenda or mission, and actually that's one of the things that prompted me to start handsupdon'tshoot.com, was because there were so many false narratives coming out of Ferguson, not just from the powers that be, or the city of Ferguson or the Ferguson Police Department, but a lot of it was coming from, supposedly our side, whether it was the movement leaders, or just black leaders, black misleaders, you know, um, they were all in on it. There were a lot of secret meetings, that had been had, a lot of discussions that no one knew about. And then all of a sudden, you see the Ferguson front line leave, you know, and I remember posting, like, could the Ferguson front line please report to Ferguson? And this is the time where they, took them on tour. Uh, they were going everywhere. They went from here to New York, and that's kind of, when they pulled this slick move, because the chant went from hands up, don't shoot to I can't breathe. So we're all just thinking, oh, okay, I can't breathe because of, Eric Garner, and then they slid in the Black Lives Matter. So, people are chanting this thinking, okay, this is just, the next chant. You know, it's like we're all evolving, you know, when that wasn't the case. What it was is they were branding themselves at that point in time.
Right, right, right. Well, I guess I don't know if you want to talk about any other ways that they maybe cause divisions in the movement that weren't
Oh,
there before.
there were definitely divisions. Remember, I was talking about the unity that we had before. Once they touched down, that was history. You know, one of the first things they did was to divide us by sexual orientation. You know, all of a sudden it became important for members of the LGBT community to be thrust, you know, to the forefront. And people who identify as straight, you know, were just really um, pushed to the side, you know, pushed to the back. The only ones who were allowed, you know, to be a voice or to be in position were ones who abandoned our struggle, meaning Ferguson, and joined Black Lives Matter. Like a lot of our front line, well, I'm going to say most of our front line, the original front line, the Nettas, the Britneys, you know, they abandoned us, and they went along with Black Lives Matter, and they ultimately became mascots of Black Lives Matter. So one of the first ways they divided us was that, and another way they divided us, there was a divide with the clergy, the Black clergy, um, and that's just because of the whole LGBT um, thing, you know, and they didn't really want to say this, so they kind of like, you know, fell back, you know, with the exceptions of the ones, you know, who became part of this whole Black Lives Matter grift. So those were the main divisions, and Black men were just completely pushed to the back, pushed to the back burner. And I found that to be very odd because I mean, we were out there for Mike Brown, you know, and I remember talking to young brothers, like one had to be probably, I remember two brothers, they had to be like maybe 8 and 12, and they were out there at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, with us standing there. And I remember asking them, like, you know, why aren't you at home? Do your parents know you're here? I don't know if they snuck out or what the situation was, but the 8-year-old told me he was out there because he could be Mike Brown.
Mm.
Yeah, he told me that. And I was like, well, you see these
Wow.
police that are surrounding us, you know, they're not playing. You know, this could get really serious. And I will never forget what he was like, well, shoot, I have something for them. You know, he wasn't going to back down. And this is just, you know, an 8-year-old taking his stand. And, you know, no 8-year-old should be put in that position. You know, so to see, you know, the young brothers that were out there, and they were out there, you know, they came together in ways that I, I, I never thought would happen in St. Louis. Like really, like when you get to a point where you can actually reach them, they're listening. You know, they're like little sponges absorbing just the information and the knowledge. You know, they're young warrior cubs just ready, you know, and like I said, to see us, well, I'm not going to say us, to see people squander that moment, you know, I think St. Louis will pay for that for a long, long time.
All right. I just want to throw up something on the screen and talk about basically. So you were one of the people kind of raising what's going on, where these meetings happening, what's happening with the money that's coming in or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, I started asking about the money because I'm seeing people that I know are broke, okay, jet setting, and I'm like, how is this person doing this? And like a lot of them, like I said, our whole front line, traveling, all over the world, and someone has to pay for that. But what really got me about that is, why are you leaving when our battle is here? All of these people are here because we shook the world. Okay. Black Lives Matter. Well, they weren't they didn't come to us as Black Lives Matter. They stumbled upon us in the media like everyone else. Like, they didn't make us. We were already made. When they came, they saw us on the news. That's why they came. Okay. And what a lot of people don't know is their time here was very limited. I think they were here maybe 3 days. And so they set this whole narrative, of starting this and leading this and leading us, when they were only here for 3 days.
That's one thing. And I want to encourage everybody to check out Nyota's website, handsupdon'tshoot.com, allblacknews.com, as well as just her social media. But one of the things you've done is really archived a lot of this, which
Oh,
to me
yeah.
is very important, because there's a lot of false narratives being promoted, either
Mm-hmm.
by deliberately or by lazy journalism, about the origins of Black Lives Matter, the idea that they were somehow established before Ferguson, when really they had really no online presence. They might have had some
They
kind of
they
grouping,
had
but they
a
had no organization really. Was
they
that
had
was
a
that correct?
Twitter.
Right.
They had a Twitter that because they were saying that they started doing Trayvon Martin. So they had a Twitter that maybe had 100 followers. I don't
Yeah.
even think it had that many. And yeah, there's a lot of revising now after the fact. There's a lot of people deleting posts, deleting comments, and things like that. And then plus you have big tech deactivating people and terminating them. So you lose a lot like that. Actually, what I'm doing right now with handsupdon'tshoot.com is I'm I'm making it an archive, like a timeline, of everything. So that requires me going back to, I mean, how many years of posts? 7 years of posts, and archiving it in a way that people can follow and understand. Fortunately, I took a lot of screenshots. I saved a lot of my Facebook and Twitter data and things like that. Um, Darren Sills has quite a bit on his Twitter, but the problem is he has one of those, you know how you install those, I don't know what they are, extensions, like, so many people unfollowed me this day or whatever. He has one of those on his Twitter. So his posts are like deep, deep, they're buried now. His tweets, they're buried. So that's one of the things that I'm archiving on the Sleep is the New Woke site. That's going to be launching soon, along with my podcast, where I'll be talking about things like this and just trying to wake people up to the reality of just what's been going on the past 7 years.
So Darren, he was one of the people who kind of saw what you're doing and wanted to work with you, and y'all started
Yeah.
collaborating. Was that how it happened?
Well, actually, what happened was we went on one action together, and that was Nellie's Black and White Ball. Um, we, I'm not going to tell you how we got in, but we got in, and we had an action there, and it was a whole big thing because I think Mike Brown's mother was there being honored, and a lot of the officers that were doing security there were the same officers we would see out, on West Florissant. But that's the only action he and I did together, and we really didn't, say too much then. I didn't know him before Ferguson. he didn't know me before Ferguson, but he started following my post. And he got at me about some of the things that I was talking about because he saw those same things. And this was around the time where he was being discouraged with what he was seeing. He was part of the whole Hands Up United clique that they were putting together. But Darren was very different, you know, from a lot of the other frontliners because the things that he saw, he was not going to go along with. He was not going to go along with those things. Not only was he not going to go along with them, he was going to expose them, which is what he started doing. So,
Right.
like I said, he got at me, and just from that point, you know, we started sharing information. He started amplifying my voice. Darren was like the voice of the streets. He was the heart and soul of our movement. And, you know, when he put things out, you know, people paid attention. The difference between me and Darren, we have very different styles. He was very like in your face, you know. He would call them out, you know, he would tag them on posts, he would tweet at them, you know, and a lot of times he would drag me into these tweets, you know, Twitter exchanges. And I really don't do the back and forth, you know what I'm saying? But he would take my words and amplify them, you know, and that's how a lot of his followers ultimately became my followers.
I want to get into that right now, actually, just to give a couple of examples of this, and I'm gonna throw some stuff on the screen that I kind of prepared for the moment. All right. All right, so y'all can see this?
Yes.
So this is 2016. This is a while back. So you've been on this for years.
Oh, yeah.
And this is an example of something that Darren Seals, let me see if I can.
Just FYI, we see your file manager, not the document. Okay.
Oh, you don't see the document? Okay. All right, I'll share it differently. Sorry, y'all. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so stop this. So that was one thing that I wanted to. I'm gonna keep throwing up a couple more screenshots here. Sorry about the slowness of that. So there's this exchanges. I know it's hard to see. I got a few more that zoom in on it. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm gonna read it a little bit. Can I zoom on the screen? Oh, never mind. So basically, this is Darren Seals' post, and this is literally probably around the time we were in communication to try to bring you into Boston. I read this whole thing word for word, shaking my head. Our own people robbed our community, our youth, the Michael Brown family, and everybody that stood in those streets for millions. I'm disgusted at you MFers after reading this. Where's the money? And he's talking about this article that you found, or these basic documents you found, and I'm just gonna keep going to a little bit more for everybody to see. So basically, oops. Here it is. So on here is basically where can I share this? It's hard to see, but and it's the exchange. And Darren C, this is under that text, but Darren Seal said, talking to two of the activists there, Tory Russell and Tef Poe, I read this, y'all Oregon in there. What's up with this? And Tory Russell, I think it was with Hands Up United, and basically said this is false, and so is the idiot who posted, basically calling you an idiot.
Yeah, let me give people a little insight.
Okay.
Tory Russell and Tef Poe, what people don't know is in the very, very beginning, they were supposed to be part of handsupdon'tshoot.com. You know, I was trying to take them under my wing and, you know, teach them some Black-centered ideology, you know, and things like that. And, you know, everything was good until, you know, Black Lives Matter swooped in. And then, you know, suddenly they stopped, you know, returning my calls. They stopped calling. They just went completely ghost on me. And I hadn't spoken to him since then. So this is the first time he referenced me since the beginning of this. Okay. And it was to call me an idiot.
Wow. So Darren Seals goes, if it's false, why is this org got it on their website? Why wasn't this reported as false? They lying while you got them. Why don't you get them to do the retraction? Hell of a lot of details to be a lie.
Yeah, what he's referring to is a PDF that I found just in my searches.
Yeah, I got it. I'll post parts of it.
Okay. And in that PDF, it describes like all of this money, millions coming into Ferguson just for everything. Okay. And people, I mean, it listed amounts, names, all of this stuff. And up until this point, no one knew there was money. Okay. There was no, hey, we're having the meeting to discuss all of this money that's coming in. There was none of that. You know, it was just secret meetings, you know, with certain people, you know, who were dividing up this money. And the sad thing is, I mean, you look at all these things that the money is earmarked for, and that it didn't go to anything. Like, we have nothing to show for all of that money that came in. And before I posted this document, like I said, no one even knew this money existed. Tory Russell knew this money existed. His org is listed in here. See that? Open Society Foundations? That's Soros. And I told people even before this, in January of 2015, I posted an article with the it was an article featuring the director of Soros's Open Society Foundations, where he was talking about, you know, them funding the Ferguson protests. And again, list names, list amounts, you know, and all of that. And when I originally posted that, I mean, you should have seen them come for me. Like, all the activists came for me. You know, all these different people came for me. Well, how do you know? And consider the source and blah, 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 blah. And just all of this, you know, trying to divert attention away from what I was saying, trying to deceive, trying to chip away at my credibility, just all types of things. But what I will tell people is this: if all of this were on the up and up, there would be no need for them to lie or to deceive or to keep all of this secret. That's how you know.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting that Open Society was right there. But I know, just as you know, a grassroots organizer for many years, I mean, I was shocked at the first line of even 150 grand for canvassing. Like, that shocked me.
Yes.
So this concept of, you know, paid protests was somewhat, you know, maybe it's been around for a while, but to me, it was like a brand new kind of thing that we really kind of hadn't seen up to now. I'm sure it was there on some level, but not like this.
And people didn't want to believe. You know, people truly wanted to believe, this production they put together. They wanted to believe because, of course, you want to believe that Black people are coming together to do for Black people. And this is totally organic and grassroots, but it wasn't, it was AstroTurf.
Right. So um, I want to move to one other thing because y'all were, and this is like a week before Darren is murdered. And for those who don't know
Yes,
the
all of this is
circumstances,
taking
yeah,
place. Yes, all of this is taking place a week before he was murdered. Actually, when I made this post that he shared, I was kind of nervous because I already knew, and Darren knew, that there were two people in this movement that they wanted dead, and that was him and that was me, the two of us. And we actually had conversations about that, and when I posted this, I knew that, I could be putting my life in jeopardy. But I felt that this was important information and it had to go out. And you really can't do this work in fear. You know what I'm saying? You can't do it in fear. If you're fighting, there's going to be pushback. And if you look at all of our leaders, what happened? Either murdered or in prison. So, no one comes out of this, you know, better off than when they went into it. Some people don't come out of this at all. So when I posted this, I was kind of nervous, kind of hesitant, but I did it. And then when Darren reposted my post, and as you can see, he was very in your face, with Tory and Tefpo, and just to hold hands up united. I figured that would be pushback, but I never in a million years thought that, he would be murdered. I mean,
right,
even though that those types of things can happen, you don't really think those things are going to happen. And when that happened, that just really uh, was proof of how deep the rabbit hole went.
right. So along these lines, I just wanted to post something else and just wanted to raise this because why we've been uh, stressing this with the folks that have come around us here in Boston, but and whoever mass action works with nationally, gotta really do your research, and
Yes.
you can't believe every story you're told. In case in point, I'm gonna throw something else on the screen here to make that point. I know you'll know what I'm talking about. Um,
Oh.
there's so this is one of the documentaries about Ferguson that unless you knew better, you would just assume that was the story. It's called Whose Streets Will Not Go Quietly. Incidentally, it was also dedicated in part to Darren Seals, which I thought was pretty wild. And you'll see why as I throw up a few more screenshots. And these are all courtesy of Nyota. So we all got Nyota to thank for this. The person who's on the screen here, oops, sorry. This movie is kind of about Ferguson, but it's set in the point of view of one of the activists. This is Brittany Farrell, who was one of the folks that got involved. I mean, you know more of a background than I do, but helped form one of the groups, Millennials United, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, this is the movie or the documentary is kind of shown from her point of view. Just to throw up a couple more screenshots before I take over. Basically, This is something you posted. But basically, encouraging people to Google Brittany Farrell and Black Lives Matter. And I'm just gonna throw up one of her last, or one of the tweets she had tweeted about Darren Seals that that people should know, because if you're gonna watch this documentary, you should definitely know a little bit more about her and some of the thoughts she had. And I'll just put this up here. So, so basically, you get down to her last tweet. She basically called to drag Darren Seals' body in the street. So
they had no love for Darren Seals,
right.
None, and they were very vocal about that.
I guess one other figure maybe you can mention briefly is D-Ray McKesson. Kind of made a name off of
yeah,
Ferguson.
D-Ray. And also, who goes along with D-Ray, who they're trying to conveniently erase, is Charles Wade. I don't know if you remember Charles Wade, who ultimately got arrested for human trafficking and prostitution. So they kind of like, erased him from the whole, BLM. But yeah, it was D-Ray, Netta, Charles Wade, and others. But D-Ray McKesson, yeah, he's another one. He came and they set him up with Netta to give him some Ferguson cred, and with Brittany Paxton. I don't know if you remember, they were both out of Teach for America. And so he just came in out of nowhere, and he was one of those who was tweeting, while we were out in the streets getting tear gassed. And Darren took, offense with that, and he stepped to D-Ray. And I don't know if people remember this, but he slapped the shit out of him. I'm just going to put it like that. For just coming here and hijacking what we started, it people don't understand, like, when you take to the streets, you stand with people, you're basically like putting your life on the line with other people, you know what I'm saying? Like, people you feel like are your comrade.
So
And
go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, and to have the people abandoned your struggle to go and stand in solidarity with the D-Rays, and the Black Lives Matter, that's, especially in a city as small as St. Louis. And what I mean by that is our activist community is very small. This is a type of place you're going to see people. You can't escape. You're going to be out at actions, and even if you weren't, you could run into people anywhere here. At the grocery store, at Walmart, anywhere. And like I said, St. Louis is a very violent city. So to have that infiltrate our movement, that was huge.
Yeah, well, you just kind of, one thing you raised briefly, I just wanted to mention for people to some of the information you're sitting on top of. Just, I remember one picture, I think it was Darren Seals had posted, but I'm sure it's something that y'all had dug up together. But to talk about the coziness of the small, there was a picture of, basically the Ferguson administration, the mayor, basically chumming it up with Darren Wilson,
Yeah.
like they're that close, and just that was pretty interesting for me to see. It tells you kind of all you need to know. But
Yeah.
I just wanted you to talk about some of the other murders, people who were murdered like Darren, and just the fact that nobody's really investigating it. Definitely Black Lives Matter hasn't really been called for anything.
No one's even talking about it. I mean, Darren was the heart and soul of our movement, and no one's even talking about his murder. Okay, but there was a series of brothers being found shot and set on fire. Um,
Right.
and there was just nothing. It's everyone ignored it. Like none of this, like nothing happened. Like, what are the chances? Just the statistical odds that you know people who were in the same movement, or people who knew each other, or just random people in the city, would all be shot and set on fire. How often has that happened, in Massachusetts, in Boston, where you're from? How often? See, that's what I'm talking about. But yet it happens here and it warrants no investigation. None. They gave Darren, a key to the city, you know, um, this is after his funeral. They had a resolution in the city of St. Louis, and then just that was it. There was no investigation, no nothing. There are people who have run for elected office, out of our movement, under the banner of Black Lives Matter, who are in position now and have not called for an investigation into the murder of Darren Seals, into the murders of, the other brothers who were shot and set on fire, or even, for Wesley Bell to reopen the investigation into the murder of Mike Brown. There's just nothing. It's all swept under the rug. No one talks about it. Wesley Bell, the first Black county prosecutor who ran on Ferguson, okay, he gets in and ducks and dodges the issue for well over a year. I know this because I had a counter on handsupdon'tshoot.com of every day since he got into office, that he has not responded to the request to reopen the investigation. And, out of the blue, I mean, completely out of the blue, he comes out and says that, oh, I did an investigation and there's nothing I can do. Okay. And that was it. Case closed.
Just I wanna say that I hope we can get you back again, because I know this subject matter is deep and broad and there's a lot of ground to cover. So I hope we can come back another
Mm-hmm.
round at this in the future, because we're definitely committed to exposing all of this. And but definitely I want to ask, I guess, a final question before maybe we can take some questions from the audience. Is and this is to Brian as well, but basically, what are your thoughts on some of the recent call outs by you know these families who are demanding, that there's, and the moves by Black Lives Matter to try to maybe whatever settle or whatever
Mm-hmm.
with the funds that they're sitting on, and as well as some of these chapters that have came out in the last several months, calling out BLM. So just wanted to get both your thoughts on that. So um, I don't know who wants
Who
to go
first?
first.
Go for it. Go for it.
My thoughts, long overdue. I totally stand with Samaria Rice and Mike Brown Sr. And what people don't know about Mike Brown Sr., he called this out years ago when Antonio French, he actually posted, going off on Antonio French for selling his son out for $500,000. Um, just the man, I don't even know where to begin. Like, seriously, because like I said, I've been at this for many, many, many years. Like, to me, all of this is, a minimum 5 years. overdue. Um, but everything they're saying is true. What gets me about this is we had the opportunity during Ferguson to nip this in the bud. We had an opportunity during Ferguson to kill the grift before it even happened. So that's one of the things that really gets to me, because think about how different things would be had people listened when Darren and I called that out back in 2014, 2015, 2016. Some of these people may still be alive today. You know, uh, Black Lives Matter. I mean, think about how much money Black Lives Matter has uh, diverted from the real grassroots. Now they're saying $90 million, but it's way more than $90 million, because they were getting pledges of over $100 million from different, nonprofits. And this is way back when I started, looking into the money, 2015, 2016. So the money didn't decrease, it increased. Okay. And there have been estimates, I think The Economist magazine said that they had raised $10 billion. And I wouldn't be surprised about, by that number when you look at, how long, you know, they've been soliciting money, how long they've been getting these pledges, and you're talking worldwide. Okay, you're not just talking about here, you're talking about globally. So $90 million is absolutely nothing. And even if you wanted to take that number, let's say that's $90 billion, and since what, 2014, so what if it was $90 million every year? Look at how much money that is. Money that could have gone to the authentic grassroots, where we could actually build the systems and institutions that we need to counter all of this, to counter police brutality, to counter, you know, uh, the powers that be, because this costs money, so those are the things that gets me about all of this, because I feel like things could be so different right now. I guess the thing that we are going to have to learn is, like you said, do the research, but even more so, listen to our people who are on the ground. Listen to the people who are right there, who are going through it, at that moment, when they tell you these things, especially when they can back it up, with receipts. But none of it surprises me, because I sat here and watched this, happen for the past 6 to 7 years. And it's not just, what I want people to understand, it's not just the Tamika Mallory's, it's, her appearing on the Grammys or doing the Cadillac commercial. We can go all the way back to Cap. We could go to Jay-Z and the NFL. Okay. All of that got us to this point where we are right now. Okay. And if people really take a honest, look, I mean, even way back during Ferguson, we had celebrities show up. We had the Benzino show up. We had the, what's her name? The Fix My Life lady. Do you know her
Yana
name?
Van Zant.
Yeah, she came. It was so many different people. Kiki Palmer came. So many different people came. So it's not like this just happened right now. It's just the fact that people watched, a lot of people applauded this, instead of asking the tough questions. A lot of people didn't want to know.
Right. So
Well, just to
fine. Yeah, go ahead.
to follow up, I'm trying to say a bunch of things in a short amount of time. First of all, though, shout out 100% to Nyota for being on this call. Um, I was able to establish a connection a little bit later than Brock, but she played a fundamental role in helping me in the real political fight, really, for why it was essential, even if we were an independent organization from the jump, to change our names and to expose what you know, what was going on, and use the opportunity of us changing our names to say something about what this organization called Black Lives Matter is. And she wrote a very succinct piece that we read at a conference that we did in Cincinnati. Some people actually in this room were there for it, and I thank her for that. And it was just extremely important. That together with the trip that we took to St. Louis really helped us quite a bit. So I want to say a couple of things. Two things can be true at the same time on this question about these so-called settlements, or the demands that this money be turned over. Families can deserve that money and should get the money, and it should be spread it should be spread as widely as they have money. In other words, the liquidation of Black Lives Matter, their global network, money going directly to all the families who need court costs and other things. I'm for that 100%. So that can be true. And at the same time, it can be true that the organization that's giving them the money is still trash and the money should be given with no strings attached, no gag orders, informal gag orders, and no credit to you for giving it because it wasn't yours to begin with. So that's my initial thought on it. BLM and their affiliates, by various names, like Nyota said, diverted a lot of money away from families and authentic organic movements to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. I believe the $10 billion figure. You don't give away $500,000 grants if you're not banking big. I don't care if it's one, I don't care if it's 10. They're shell gaming the money, and that's been proven in different ways too. But I'll let other people go into those things, because as much money as that was grifted, that wasn't the biggest crime. And the problem isn't, for me, fundamentally, who's giving the money. It could be Soros, it could be Bill Gates, for all I care. The problem is how it's used and what the leadership that is taking that money does with it within the movement. I would be for anyway. So the biggest problem is the political problem. And I'm going to lay out several things that I think are the huge political problems that they introduced to the movement. Some of it Nyota described. They oppose prosecutions and jailings of police. Nyota can probably back me on this. Never have they called for jailing. Never have they called for prosecution. Anytime they were in Ferguson and anytime since, they openly say, and they don't openly say that. They don't openly say that they're not for prosecutions and jailings unless you press them hard on the question, and then they admit it. But you notice that it's clearly missing from any of their demands on any of their websites and affiliate websites. And their reasoning for it is sly. They say that they're against prisons for everybody, including police. Now, keep in mind, this has been their position this whole time, that they're against, these are the people who were politically in front of actions, who gave marching orders nationally, are people who are not for convictions and not for jailing. They don't tell the families this. They just omit it from the demands and replace them with demands like healing and reforms, and whether it's body cams or review boards or legislation or training or whatever, anything that they can use to avoid this central demand, including defund, which I'm not going to go into just right now. Maybe it'll be something to follow up. They don't fundamentally support mass action. Like, not mass action, the organization. They don't support as many people as possible on the streets. They tend to prefer small actions of civil disobedience. And their favorite chant, ironically, is, if we don't get it, shut it down. But they do actions that look to dozens and hundreds, not thousands and millions. So they aren't actually shutting anything down. The state is making a decision not to go after them because they're not a threat. But they don't get the same, the state doesn't get to make the same kind of decision when tens of thousands or millions are on the street. So they miseducate activists. They actually say like big actions with lots of people on the streets, like Nyota was describing, that's what your grandparents did. That stuff doesn't work. You got to go for this new stuff where you chain yourself, it's not new, but you got to go for this new way where you chain yourself to fences or you do anything other than organize as many people as possible onto the streets. They don't tend to support real unified action either. Nyota laid it out. The George Floyd demonstrations reflected the natural reaction, which Nyota didn't think would ever, she would ever get to see, but got to see that in the moment where it's laid on the table, plain for the eye to see, the level of injustice that was happening when Mike Brown was killed. People from all kinds of backgrounds and strata came out, naturally came out. And as they came out, they began to form their own authentic, organic leadership, which Nyota, Darren, and others in their own way were part of. They're not for that. Instead, they do things like set white people aside in different categories and support roles. What if the family whose loved one was killed is white? Then what? That was one of the things that made it crystal clear for us that we had nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, because one of the families we were supporting here was the family of Quandavier Hicks. Quandavier Hicks was a Black man who was killed by police in his own damn apartment. Well, he's got white relatives. So you gonna tell those people that they can't be a part of the protest?
You don't have to stop doing anything.
Or that they can't be a part of the same organizing efforts? That those people who are his family, who are fighting for his, because he was killed, they don't have the same access and ability to participate in political actions? Those are the kind of things that divide movements. We don't have to worry about whether Black people are going to be at the front of a movement against police brutality. If you just mind your business and let it naturally happen, we will be. So to me, that's another huge thing. And I don't want, that one of the more popular things that happened around George Floyd is they would have white people just randomly, all white people, calling white people to be on the outside of a protest because cops won't attack white people before they attack Black. I get the logic of it, but I don't want somebody, and if it's going down, I don't need somebody in front of me. If blows have to be thrown, I'll be damned if I'm not one of the people throwing it. And furthermore, real defense guards should be trained, and it should be those people who volunteer because they're trained and they want to, whether they're Black, white, Latino, or anything else. So I say all that just to make the point, and there's examples of local betrayals from BLM formations during, more recently, close to me in Ohio, where the family's demands that included prosecute and jail the cops literally were hidden from us. When we tried to do a solidarity action for Breonna Taylor, the people who sent the message of us of what the demands were omitted the demands of jailing and prosecuting the police. So I'll stop here, but the level of betrayal. So people wonder, well, why is mass action? Why is people like Brian, why are people like Nyota so fixated on, trying to help you understand what Black Lives Matter is? Why do we not chant it at protests? Why do we not engage with that organization and encourage other people not to? Why am I not for chanting it at actions? It's precisely because what Nyota said when they branded their names. They may come to an action for mass action, or they may come to an action that we're organizing in Cincinnati. Just a random person who's inspired to come out and join the fight. Well, if you're chanting Black Lives Matter, when they go home, if they don't have your email address or your website, what are they going to look up? They're going to look up what the newspapers say is organizing the action. And when they do, they're going to go to those websites and they're going to proceed to be miseducated on how to fight, who are the principal characters in the fight, and basically even what the fight is about. So yeah, the money is a huge deal. It's a huge amount of money, and I support anybody that's able to wrest any of that money that they should have anyway. But the biggest question, even bigger than that, is, like you said, Nyota, is the betrayal that set us back. If and I'll finish on this. If the blueprint that was beginning to be created, I say recreated because y'all were taking the baton of rebels and revolutionaries before you. But if that blueprint had not been squashed and then covered up and then lied about and recast as something else to the nation, that original blueprint could have put us in a different situation for families around the country. So that was the biggest betrayal to me.
All right. Well, we want to take a few questions from the audience, and then we should probably wrap up. I mean, we could go for hours in attempting to do it, but we'd rather maybe do it like with the second round, if that's cool. But I'm gonna run down like 3 questions, and y'all can sound off on it. One is politicians. What is their relationship to this whole thing, and why is George Soros interested in this movement anyway? Where's the money? Where did it go? And then somebody asked, why not support both? I don't understand the question. Is support both groups? Is that what's being asked? I don't know. But I think I assume that's what's being asked. Why is a distinction being made? I guess. Wait, here we go. Yeah, and that was okay.
How about this?
So,
This is
Diani. Okay, go ahead.
Diani.
Oh, my bad. Diani.
We could speak about George Soros and all that shit, but you know what? Excuse me. Let me check my language. What I found in terms of my research, Mitch McConnell has at least $13,000 of the marijuana lobby right now going on, and then after that, other people in the marijuana lobby. After that, it goes from Vermont to Colorado. But why does Mitch McConnell have it? It's only like $13,000 of the people that give to him in terms of his lobby. Yeah, that's a thing, and yeah, that's
all right.
Okay, sorry.
Thanks, Diani. So I guess if you want to maybe try any of those last questions, and then any last comments, and maybe we'll wrap up here. Oh, and we have one final question. Actually, before you go, Nana, let's take this last question. This will be the last one. Go ahead, Howard. You got to unmute.
Oh, here I am.
There you go.
Yeah. Basically, it's a Soros, and even the Ford Foundation. They were. Ford goes way back to Adolf Hitler. He helped get Adolf Hitler off the ground. I mean, but they do a lot. But he was also very active what he called the civil rights movement. At the same time, he was supporting Hitler. But so basically, this is like an ongoing thing that they do. Like they're even international. Like Soros is involved in the they call it a color revolution. So when they talk about being involved in the civil rights and giving money and aid, it's all like it's a front for the Central Intelligence Agency. You know, it's international and it's domestic. So this thing about hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, this goes way back. I mean, this is ongoing. They get unlimited amount of money. So that's why I said, like when the Ford Foundation had a documentary, it's like, remember I talked to you about it already when you were showing the Black Panther Party. Half the documentary was about that was made so the Black Panthers okay, and then the other half was saying they're a bunch of gangsters. Huey Newton's beating people up, and I mean half the documentary is about that. So that's what they and they're part of the civil rights movement. Soros the same thing. I mean they helped overthrow the Ukraine government. They were involved in that. So it's international, domestic. They have unlimited amounts of money, billions of dollars. It's all a front for the Central Intelligence Agency. So yeah, I mean it's not like it's, and that's so they're just using this thing with Ferguson to get. It's more to get the everything behind the Democratic Party, in other words, which is like supporting the Wall Street, and big money and everything like that, and then exporting the name Black Lives Matter is part of what they call a color revolution. That's the word that they use. That's the CIA word for what they're doing in Ferguson and everywhere else. And also, what happened in Ferguson, I mean, St. Louis, the main organization, Ferguson, it's headquartered in Ferguson, the White Citizens Councils. It's part of the Klan, the Ku Klux Klan, Uptown Klan, they call it. I mean, they were in Boston, organizing the violence in Boston in the mid-'70s. So it's like, so basically the St. Louis Klan was organizing in Boston. I mean, it's all interconnected, nationwide, and it's all, a color revolution all over the world. They have unlimited money to do it. It's like ongoing. This is what they're doing.
Thanks, Howard. All right, so Nyota and Brian, y'all get the last word here. So,
I agree with everything with the gentleman just said, because one of the first things they did with us when I really knew was, they brought out the voter registration table, on West Florissant, and started registering people to vote and started selecting protesters and activists to run for office as good little Democrats. But what I want people to know is the struggle is still going on here. Ferguson activists are very much still involved, still in the streets. We've learned some very tough lessons these past several years, but I think in our own way, people are starting to, how can I say this? People who have learned are trying in their own ways to come back together and find that unity because they understand that that's what it's going to take. And now people are under no illusion, of who people are. And what I mean by that is whether it's Black Lives Matter or elected leaders. It was just some really, really tough lessons to learn. And I'm hoping that people who have watched us from a distance will learn from this so that it's not repeated, over and over and over again. Because the fact that we didn't learn from the 60s is why this happened, because I mean, the March on Washington, was co-opted. So this isn't the first time that this has happened. None of this is new. And it's just like he said that counter-revolutionary. That's why it matters. The young lady said she doesn't care about Soros, but Soros funds the counter-revolution, and he funds, a lot of these politicians, and things like that. That's why he matters. And that's why it's important that we follow the money and that we go down the rabbit hole, because if we don't, we'll just keep repeating these same cycles.
Brian?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate something that Brock said, that I hope that we can pick this up again in some future weeks, because we'll probably hear an announcement of some actions that are coming up, and we know that the verdict around George Floyd is coming up. So the part of why I'm agreed to be a part of this discussion is because I think that there's a national misdirection that Nyota pointed out so clearly. But the other part of that story is that I think that there's the possibility to expose and redirect the movement back on a footing that can take advantage of and bring in this new layer of fighters who are coming to the front lines. But that's only if we, to the best of our abilities, with all of the forums that we have, Nyota through her ever-present media engagement, and now also, you know, lending a little public voice. Those of us who are organizing with families and other fighters in coalitions or in organizations, putting this front and center. Because the thing that we haven't even mentioned in this conversation is that in addition to the media and in addition to the grift and the lies by Black Lives Matter, many of the traditional radical organizations also failed to catch this, failed to talk about it, and failed to do anything about it. In fact, many of them failed, or some of them failed to even engage in this movement at all in any significant way. So that's another piece of the puzzle. But going back to the questions, the demands of Black Lives Matter are a skinny man's flex away from Democratic Party demands. That's all. I want to read to you the main provisions of the DREAM Act. Section 1, divesting federal resources from incarceration and policing, and ending criminal legal system harms. Section 2, investing in new approaches to community safety utilizing funding incentives. 3, allocating new money to build healthy, sustainable, and equitable communities for all people. And Section 4, holding political leaders accountable and enhancing self-determination of Black communities. So if you break apart all of that college speak into what it is, it's about a handful of cracker crumbs in the fight against police brutality. And nowhere in there are demands to reopen cases and to convict killer cops. It's not in there, once again. And I happened to relook it up. Because I have other notes on it, but I couldn't find them. So I just Wikipedia'd real quick so I could get what those provisions were. And now that I've gone on Wikipedia, they've changed how the BREATHE Act is described. Last time I gave a presentation where I mentioned it, which was less than 2 months ago, Brock, you'll remember, because I read from it. Less than 2 months ago, it clearly said that the BREATHE Act was an animal that was created by Congress people, which it was. And now Wikipedia has been edited and changed to say the BREATHE Act is an omnibus bill presented by the Electoral Justice Project of the Movement for Black Lives. So it's the same bill. It's created by the same people in the Democratic Party. And it should give you pause. It should give you a little bit of pause if you know, major congressional Democratic Party politicians have no issue with it. What they do have an issue with and won't talk about is reopening the cases and putting forward an investigation in places where grand juries threw out cases altogether. That's what they don't want to talk about. And this bill could have proposed that, could have proposed taking actions to do just that. They have no interest in it. So, and here's why. Here's the problem. If you believe that police can be reformed, then it makes total sense. It's totally logical to push for measures to make them better, to act better, to do better. to get more equipment so they can do their jobs right, to be trained better. If that's the logical conclusion that you have to come to if you believe that police can be reformed. That if you pass enough laws and do enough things like that, then they'll be okay. If you defund them, basically threaten them with losing some of their budget, then maybe things will be okay. But if you understand that police are a force that has been put here since their existence to repress us, to hold down political struggles, and to defend the very racist system that has been holding us down, literally and figuratively, since America began, then you would be more apt to look for measures that punish them so that they are less likely to do it again. Hence why the demand of prosecutions and jailings are so important. And it gets to the heart of this idea that no, I personally don't think police can be reformed. I don't argue whether individual cops are good and bad. The entire institution is our enemy. When there's a union struggle, who's against it? When we have a protest, what direction do they face? They always face the direction, and the people who behind them are always the people they're defending. And guess who they never put their back to? So, yeah, understanding their fundamental role in society will begin to help us understand the problem with these demands that Black Lives Matter and all these other people put forward. So, and these politicians. So I'll leave the Soros and Ford Foundation question to what Nyota said, except for to say this. They're surely going to only give money to who they, in general, right now, to who they think is going to play by the two-party rules and get people to do things like Nyota said about voting, registering, and our salvation is within the confines of elections and the system and whatever. But if we're able to take political control on a national level of what people see as the movements and the leadership, if we're able to move them aside, then the generous contributions of people who genuinely want to help the struggle are open up, and families can get access to the money that's been diverted to Black Lives Matter and other groups. So I absolutely agree with Nyota that you have to follow this money because it tells a story in and of itself. So I'll stop there, and I appreciate being able to be part of this panel, and yeah, it was just been a good night.
All right, on that note, I think we're going to close up. I just want to really thank both our panelists again today, especially Nyota, because it's been a long time coming, and
it's been a long time, brother. We all have to do this again. I'm in total agreement.
Yeah, and okay, well that's good. So
what does that mean?
That's part of the
saying an agreement. Like, what does that mean?
That means I agree with his request to do this again, to have another session.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Because there will be other things that are exposed. It seems like every day there's something else, especially, now that we're talking about the commodification of the struggle, So who knows where that's going to lead.
Right. And I just want to encourage everyone to support Nyota's group and project, Alt Black News. I put the Cash App up there, Cash App, Alt Black News. She makes an important point that we have to support our own independent means of organizing, including online. And Nyota's, been a pioneer on that level, and has pointed out different ways where they can take our whole platforms from us, and we need to anticipate that pushback as we get more organized. And so the things that Nyota is doing with All Black News is a big part of trying to ensure that we have a way to get out our views that are counter to the status quo. So
Rock, can you put it up once again, just in case
yeah, and
people
we'll
came in
put it
later?
on the version of the final version of this that gets distributed. But All Black News is and there's also a website, allblacknews.com. Encourage people to support that. As well as Hands Up, Don't Shoot. It's kind
Yeah,
of the storehouse of this
I'm
information.
relaunching that right now. Like I said, just telling the story from the beginning, to how we got to where we are today. There's so much, you think 7 years, of posts and information. And I mean, a lot of it would have been lost, you know, um, had I not taken screenshots, because people are going back, they're deleting posts, they're deleting comments, and I've actually had to block some people just to keep them from being able to come back and delete their comments on the post. Now that, what they were talking, and what they were saying back then, they were totally lying and being deceptive, purposely. Now these same people are, trying to reinvent themselves as, uh, BLM critics. Yeah, that's interesting to watch.
Exactly.
Yes.
See a lot of that these days.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we can get to that in round 2.
Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah,
would
we
love to go there.
definitely need to get to that in round 2. It's really wild when I see people that I had to block, because they were calling me, haters, and, trying to sabotage me, trying to vilify me. I mean, all types of things, for me speaking out against Black Lives Matter. And now these same people today are speaking out against Black Lives Matter.
Right on. So yeah, just encourage everybody to stay tuned. It looks like we got round 2 in the works. I can't wait to get that set up. Looking forward to that. Definitely want to give a shout out. Long live Darren Seals and his example. We demand a real
R.I.P. King D.
investigation.
Seals.
Yeah, King D. Seals, keeping it
Mhm.
real. And definitely, I always try to shout out his name as much as possible at different demonstrations.
And thank you. I appreciate it. Like I said, he was the heart and soul, of this movement. And it really saddens me to see so many people, willing to just allow him to be erased, because had the situation been reversed and it was any of us, who lost our lives, he would be the loudest voice out there advocating for justice for us.
Right on. So, all right, everyone. I guess we're done for this week, but we'll come back next week and announce what that topic will be. But we'll definitely get an update from Minneapolis and what's going on with the Chauvin trial. And as Brian raised, there are a few things Mass Action is, working with other families across the country to do a couple national demonstrations, family-led, centered on their demands for prosecution, reopening the cases. In every city where folks are fighting, the first one's April 24th, and then the second one is going to be May 25th, which is the 1-year
Please send
anniversary
me
of
that
George Floyd.
information.
And then one other announcement is that we are trying to work, or we are working with families to actually converge in DC. Again, this time led by the families, though, not the National Action Network. And to be there on the National Mall August 28th and to march on the DOJ demanding that the case be reopened. So yeah, I will send you that information.
Yes, please
And
send me that
yeah, for sure.
information. And Brian, if I could just say really quickly, I need to connect with you.
You are.
So let's make
Yeah.
it happen really soon.
Okay. Nah, absolutely. Like next week.
Yes. Yes. Perfect.
Sounds good. So thanks everyone for participating. And with that, till we win, everybody.
Till we win.
Mass action.
Till we win.
Till we
Till we
win, mass
win. Thank
action.
you. All right, mass action.
Till we win.
People are asked to prepare themselves and their families with emergency phone kits. Spoken so high, a future for the confusion. In anticipation of an imminent government hypocritical attack. All government trampling of rights subject to merciless exposure. Join us in the overground railroad as we defend homeland security. Emancipating lost souls from mental slavery. Free your mind.